We've got our perfect midline. We are 5 millimeters back from the midline for a woman, 7 for a man, but short, a little shorter is better. 5 millimeters, 2 millimeters above the inferior margin, with a 6 by 13 millimeter window that's defined by this. So I'll typically will go 5 millimeters off the midline, mark the lower part of that about 2 millimeters up, confirm that it's 2 millimeters up, take this, lay it down on the thyroid ala, parallel with the true inferior line that goes all the way across, ignoring the tubercle. And then I do a little square around it with a marking pen, and I drill that window out using a 3 millimeter cutting burr, preserving the inner perichondrium, and then I use a little curette to curette the corners out to perfect. So it's absolutely perfect. And then I take the sizer, make sure the outer cortex fits perfectly. I make sure I walk it along the side like this to make sure it goes all the way through, so the outer cortex and the inner cortex kind of line up. Go this way again, make sure it goes all the way through. Then we're ready to move on. Then I take a beaver blade and I cut the inner perichondrium along the edges. Take an Adson, grab it, and just cut it out. Cut with a beaver blade until it's gone. At this point in time, the paraglottic space will start falling in and out with respiration with the patient. Then I elevate about a half width up here, back, full width of this hockey stick elevator in the back, down, all the way around to the lower edge. Then I do the secret Netterfield move, which is push, 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 and then I go underneath the strut and back up into the window, medial to this. Medial to the inner cortex. Sometimes I take a little knife and I cut the soft tissue, and then I make sure it goes all the way through, and I sweep all that down so the whole paraglottic space can redrape over our cell elastic implant. Then we test voice. I usually take an instrument like this. I'm putting it through the window, like so, with nothing in the front. If you push in the front, you get a tight voice, anterior overcorrection. Usually the best voice is obtained about 2/3 of the way back in the window, along the inferior margin, kind of like so. And if I find that spot and the patient's got great voice, I'm done, and I take some measurements. Same thing with this, measuring from the inner cortex to the measurement lines. There's 5 millimeters, there's 6 millimeters, 7 millimeters, 8, 9, 10. Typically it's around 5 to 6 millimeters, maybe 7 max deep usually. About 2/3 to 3/4 of the way back in the window. Then if I'm voice is confirmed to be good in that position, that is the maximum point of medialization. That's the MPU, the maximum point of medialization. So then we grab our implant, our phoniform implant, which has numbers on the back. The numbers on the back correspond to how deep the implant is at that point. And so then I want to mark out, we decided it was going to be 6. I was going to mark out 6, the number 6, which is, if I could read, we would know what it was. 6 is right here. So we mark out the implant all the way around. That's called ring around the rosy. All the way around, ring around the rosy. And then we want that point to be set perfectly in the right spot in the window. We don't want it to be up in the front. We don't want it to be all the way back. For this patient, we want it to be 2/3 of the way back. So the way we can make that easy is take our window sizer. Use our window sizer and just lay that MPU 2/3 of the way back in the window, or 3/4 or wherever it's going to be. Then I mark off the front. I mark off the back. And then we're in a good situation because that's going to be 2/3 or 3/4 of the way back in the window, which is where we wanted it. And we've set it there. Then we take a knife. We're going to cut off the front all the way through. Then we're going to cut off the key in the back, just the key part. The key part's a little bump. Just the key. That's flush and smooth. And there's our key. It's perfectly the size of the window. It's going to fit perfectly in our window. perfectly in our window, it's going to be an exact fit. Then once we do that, we start carving the implant. Did we get it from there? There we go. So this implant is the Netterville phoniform wedge. It's not sided. It could be on either side. So it looks like that. So what we're going to do at this point in time, with the ring around the rosy, we want to mark off where our maximum point of medialization is going to be. So we know we've got this line here, but we don't have it defined from top to bottom. We know we wanted this to be at that location and along the inferior margin of the window. So there's going to be the inferior margin of our window for a right-sided implant. We're going to put a little mark there, a hash mark. Well, up here a little bit. That's our maximum point of medialization right there. So then, once we've done that, we can take this guy and we load it up onto the block. Make sure it's totally perfectly flush on this block. It makes carving it way easier. By bending it down and getting it really on there. Perfect. Great. So now, what we want to do is we want to start from our maximum point of medialization and cut the entire back part of the implant off down to about the edge of this carving block. Boom. I'm going to go ahead and remark the maximum point of medialization here. You'll see why in just a second. And then our second cut's going to be cutting off the entire front of the implant down to the 0 point, because almost nobody ever needs medialization in the front. So we're going to go down to the 0 point and aim for a ½ millimeter out. Voila. And the reason why I marked that point right here is along the inferior margin. That's where we want the maximum point of medialization to be. And now I'm going to shorten up the implant because it doesn't need to be so high, so big, top to bottom. So I'll take off a couple millimeters off the bottom. Take a couple millimeters off the top. Beautiful. And now we're going to cut. Now we're going to make a pyramid by cutting from the maximum point of medialization down to the 0 point low. And high. Voila. And our maximum point of medialization is along the low part of the window. Beautiful. It's going to be 2/3 the way back. So then at this point in time, we're going to do stop signs. I'm going to cut off here. Our cricoid is going to be rising up in this area on the low part, so we're going to cut this one off too because we don't want that to get in the way and distort how our implant lays in there. It doesn't need to be quite so big in the back, so we'll cut a little bit off in the back. And then I'm going to stop sign the front a little bit. High and low. And now we're going to go ahead and shave off the other parts of the pyramid, just to make them kind of flush. I don't like the implant to be too chunky on the high side. Just smooth these guys. I use a 15 blade for this typically. And on this off. There and there. And voila. We're done. That's a little pointy at the top. See how pointy it is? Sometimes I don't like to be so sharp. And I'll just take the very top of the Matterhorn and I'll just cut it off flush so it's a little bit more rounded.
Good deal.
Then we take it out. Maximum point of medialization is low in the window. About 2/3 the way back. And that's going to fit in on our right side. Just a bit like So. And we're done.